Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. Last call to get the ultimate money game plan for free. This is an online course that I created to help you with everything from fixing your money mindset to budgeting and planning for your financial future. On May 1st, the regular price returns, so don't hit me up trying to get the hookup. You have your chance to get it for free $99, and it's all because of COVID, because I want people to have more organized finances. So this is your last chance to nab the deal. Check out the show notes. It's all yours. Today, I'm excited to have Preethi Harbuck here to share her money memoir with us. You guys know that I love to travel. What you don't know is that the reason I don't have kids yet is because I don't want them travel blocking. But today's guest gives me hope. Preethi is a mom of 5 who travels, y'all. She and her husband have traveled to 62 countries, 43 of them with children in tow. And I know you guys are probably already thinking they must be one of those families that travels all the time, but it is not true. They live and work in the Bay City area, but have prioritized budgeting so that they can travel around the world. And this is not just for vacation, but to truly immerse themselves in the culture and learn about life in other parts of the world. They have a website called Local Passport Family, where Preethi writes to spark curiosity and connection through family travel, but also while exploring at home. Preethi also recently launched Mompreneur Academy to empower mom entrepreneurs with business tools for success. So, if you like the idea of traveling but thought it was way out of reach, either because of budget or because you've added kids to the mix, Preethi's website and this episode are for you. Let's listen to Preethi Harbuck share her money memoir. Preethi, I am so excited to have you on the show. I was so excited when Stephanie told me I got the perfect podcast guest for you. She knows how much I love travel, and she knows how important it is for me to show all different perspectives of the various ways for people to budget. So I'm really excited for people to hear your story about how you are traveling in the midst of having kids and doing a budget all in one swoop.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here too. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we'll just jump right in. I mean, first we got to introduce you to the audience. So why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about where you're from, how you grew up, what money management was like in your household, things you remember about money growing up.
Yeah, for sure. So right now we live in the Bay Area with our 5 kids, and we've lived here for almost 4 years. So this has been our home for a little while, but we really love to make the world our home as well, as you know. So we do have jobs and schooling and everything here. We get a lot of questions about if we homeschool our kids. We do not homeschool our kids for now. They go to a traditional public school that we love, and we really enjoy our community here. That said, we love to explore, and we feel really passionately that travel is a wonderful way to expand our children's minds and to expand our minds as well. We love learning through travel in particular, and I love writing to inspire curiosity and connection in other families around the world as well. So that's kind of our background and what we care about. And we obviously enjoy using money to be able to make those things happen. So I grew up mostly in Alabama, although I've lived in many places around the US and a couple places around the world. So grew up mostly in Alabama. My family moved to Utah when I was in high school. And then I lived in Philadelphia all through college. And then we lived in Washington, D.C. before we moved to California. So kind of all over.
That's like the true definition, like an all-American girl. Like you've lived in multiple places all across America.
Yes, really all in all corners of the country. So my parents both grew up in India. They moved to the U.S. in the 70s. So I grew up here. I was born in the U.S. and was raised here. But I still got their sense of money from their growing up as well. And they had very different money situations growing up in India, and both of them different from each other as well as different from our lifestyle from when I was growing up in the US.
What was it like for them in India?
My mom grew up extremely poor, so her family had very little money. They're actually both have 9 siblings, so money was scarce both in general and also because it was spread across so many children. So my mom's family in particular was very poor. So she grew up in a tiny little house with 2 bedrooms with all of her 9 siblings. And so she had the sense of scarcity all growing up that kind of prevailed, especially through my younger years. And then my dad's family was a little bit more well-to-do, but they still, just by nature of having so many children and growing up in India, there's definitely a sense of saving and taking care of what was most important. So I was fortunate enough to grow up without any of those same feelings of scarcity. However, I definitely still got a sense of my parents wanting to prioritize what was most important and not being wasteful with their money. So that was definitely a common theme from when I was growing up.
Were there lots of conversations in your household about various money topics and about the importance of saving?
Money kind of worked its way into a lot of our conversations. There weren't necessarily a ton of conversations where our parents sat us down and said, this is how you should treat your money. But it was woven into a lot of our conversations, into a lot of our purchase behavior. And in terms of the decisions that my parents made with their money, that was always very open and clear with me and my sister.
Gotcha. So you just have one sibling then?
Correct. Yep. I have one sister.
They went from 9 as a bunch of siblings to like, we're just going to have 2.
Yeah, that's pretty common, actually. A lot of people of my parents' generation in India grew up with a lot of siblings, and a lot of them chose to just have 1, 2, maybe 3 kids.
Gotcha. And what about your sister? Can you think of like any money stories between you and her in childhood growing up, or differences in personalities?
Yeah, we probably treat money a little bit differently, but just like anybody treats money kind of differently. But yeah, I think we both had the same general sense of saving for what was most important, prioritizing things like education and housing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, usually it's like 2 different personalities. One can go like be the saver, one can be the spender, but it sounds like you guys had similar experiences and turned out relatively close to the same in that regard. What kind of things did you do to earn money? Like, what's the first thing you remember doing to earn money on your own?
I did a little bit of babysitting growing up, but not tons and tons. My sister actually did quite a bit more babysitting. There were a lot of kids in our neighborhood or younger kids that we knew. So I didn't have a ton of opportunities for babysitting. And for as strongly as my parents felt about saving and prioritizing big purchases and money, in Indian culture, education is hugely important. So that was sort of treated as our job through most of our growing up. We were supposed to focus on school and our education, and outside jobs weren't really expected or necessary. In high school, I did start working a little bit more. I do remember I was an usher at a group of 3 different theaters in Salt Lake City, Utah, where we lived. So I would stand at the door and kind of show people to their seats. And I thought it was the greatest job. I'm a violinist. And it was at the symphonic hall where the orchestra played, as well as 2 other theaters that I ushered. And so I thought it was great because I got to see all these shows and I got paid for it. So that felt like a perfect high school job.
Did you have like responsibility that you had to do with the money? Like, did they say you have to save X number and you can only spend this much? Or was it free reign on what you did with the money once you earned it?
No, it was pretty free reign, although I was not a spendthrift by any means. So I'm pretty sure I saved basically all of it.
So deeply ingrained then from what they were doing and what they were saying. And yeah, the idea of this is really important.
It felt so deeply ingrained that it felt natural to me to just save it.
That's pretty cool to have that like as an automatic, like, oh, this is what you do when you get money sort of thing. So what ended up happening for college? Was there a situation where you had to take out student loans? Was it paid for? Did you get scholarships? So usually that's like a pretty big expense that people have to kind of plan for. And sounds like you said education was very important in your family.
Yeah, so my parents definitely supported me through college. That said, I also took out financial aid and had a student job while I was on campus. So throughout my college education, I always had some sort of on-campus job that I worked at as well.
Okay, so what happened after college then? Like, what was life after college like? What did you want to be? Or I guess maybe what did you major in college? And then how did the path take you from that point forward?
Yeah, so I actually studied business in college. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania to the Wharton School. So my undergraduate education was in business and economics. After I graduated, I worked for General Mills, the big food company. So I worked in sales and analytics. So I did a lot of financial work actually in my professional career. So I did that for a few years. And then I actually went back to get my MBA from Georgetown. So more business, more money. So that's been a big part of my education as well.
That is super cool. So thinking about what you wanted to do at that time, like while you were getting those degrees, like what was your intended path? Like, did you want to be in finance and go to General Mills, or what were you thinking you were going to do with those degrees before you ended up your first job versus other jobs?
Yeah, right from the beginning, I felt pretty confident that my primary area of emphasis would not be in finance. I always really loved marketing. But that said, I feel like a lot of people think of marketing as just PR or just advertising. And I really loved learning about the financial aspects of marketing. So, sort of the numbers side of marketing as well. And that was influential in both my career as well as in our home life. That has been a big part of what we enjoy teaching our children and how we manage our money now as well.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. Where'd you pick up a husband along the way? And what were you thinking kind of as you were, like you said, first job, working, organizing your finances? How were things evolving from I'm a saver standpoint? And when did your husband enter the scenario?
Yep. So my husband and I actually met in high school. And he grew up with sort of similar feelings around money. His parents were also not very spendy. And his parents grew up in the boomer generation, also with a lot of kids. So I don't know if that was influential for them as well. But regardless, their family sort of money culture also revolved around saving and prioritizing education and things like that. So I feel like we came into marriage with similar feelings toward money. So we've never had a lot of clashes in terms of what we would spend our money on. We've always both felt that money is a tool. So while we do want to save, we want to also spend it on the things that are important. We don't think it's valuable to just constantly hold on to money. It is to be used as a tool to spend on what is most important.
I love that. So you guys kind of knew each other all through the journey and you had similar value sets. And so that wasn't something that you had to kind of figure out or work out per se. But the traveling bug, when did you guys catch that?
We started pretty early in terms of our own travel, but we never really had a vision for traveling with a bunch of kids. So the summer after we got married, about a year after we got married, I had just quit my job and was about to go back to business school. And my husband had just finished his schooling and was about to start a new job. So we kind of built in a summer for ourselves there where we traveled for 2 months. So we went to Europe and Asia and South America, and it was sort of a whirlwind trip. And we knew that we would want to have kids in the near-ish future, probably within the next couple of years. So we figured that would be our last hurrah, and we wanted to take advantage of that time to travel because we didn't know if we would be able to travel more once we had kids. So we spent those 2 months traveling, and then I was in business school, and we had our oldest when I was in business school, actually. So when he was about 4 months old, I had a project in South Africa as part of my program. So because he was so young, the baby needed to come with me. And so my husband came along as well to help with the baby. So we spent about 3 or 4 weeks traveling around Southern Africa. And that was a wonderful experience. But we had, one tiny baby, so it didn't feel too complicated to do that. When he was about 18 months old, I was pregnant with our second child, our daughter. And we weren't sure if we would be able to travel much more once she was born. So we figured we would do another last hurrah trip while he was still a lap child and we didn't have to pay for his flight. So we went to Australia and New Zealand for about 3 weeks. And again, it was a wonderful experience, but we sort of figured that our traveling days might be over at that point because we'd have to pay for kids and we were having another baby. So we just didn't know how it would continue. Especially in the early years, we were able to heavily use points for our travel from our credit cards and from airline miles and that kind of thing. And so we were able to work it out. And at one point, we realized that for the 3 weeks that we had spent in Australia and New Zealand, we had spent about the same amount that our friends who had gone to Disney World from DC had spent in the 2 weeks that they were there. So we're like, okay, maybe we can still make this work for a little while longer.
Wow. Kind of like the aha moment, like we're on to something. Like
Yeah.
we could go somewhere in the United States to one destination, or we could be halfway across the world if we really organize our finances appropriately.
So that kind of opened our minds to, okay, maybe finances are not completely limiting to travel. And obviously Disney World is expensive. So that was another eye-opening moment that the places that you choose to travel also play a big part in ability to travel. So then when our daughter was 2, we decided to do another big trip before we had to pay for her, before she wasn't a lap child any longer. So we spent about a month in the Middle East. And this is when I was pregnant with our third. So we've had a few different, what we thought were last hurrah trips along the way until we kind of finally realized, okay, no, maybe we can still continue to make this work even with more children.
And also while pregnant, when I say as well, I think that's another thing that holds people back quite a bit is they get pregnant and they're like, I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. I got to protect the baby. And like all 3 of these trips now have happened during pregnancy, or 2 of the 3, one with the toddler, but you're not afraid to travel while pregnant either.
Yeah. And to be fair, I have really easy kind of smooth sailing pregnancies. So I'm grateful that we were able to travel pregnant. But yeah, it definitely is possible, assuming that you are healthy and you feel good. I feel like after that trip was the point when we sort of realized, okay, you know what, maybe we can still make this happen, even paying for children. And there are other opportunities that have come up in that time. For instance, Airbnb didn't really exist when we first started traveling. And now it's a huge player in the market and really enables families to travel as well. So that is what we use almost exclusively when we travel, especially with now 5 kids. It's just difficult to find hotels that we can all stay in, or we have to get 2 rooms. So it generally is much easier to have an apartment where we also have a kitchen. And so things like that, advances in the market have also made it easier for us to travel.
I really, really, really love this. So you have made it to 62 countries and 43 of them with your children in tow. I think that is just mind blowing for a lot of people. And one of the things you kept bringing up was I didn't think I was going to be able to continue forward because another kid's on the way. I feel like so many people feel that as the barrier. Like once kids comes, you're not allowed to do anything fun anymore. And you're proving like, that one, that that's not true, but also that kids can be a part of the travel and it can be a part of the experience. And it doesn't sound like to me if you go to 62 countries and that you've taken your kids to 43 and they're got a brand new one that was just born in January, that it's like so much like we're going on vacations in a touristy sort of way, but that travel means something different to you. So can you talk to me a little bit about what does travel mean to you and like, why are you organizing all these trips and how is it different than just going on a vacation?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, 62 countries and 43 countries with kids does not happen accidentally. We didn't all of a sudden end up with 43 countries with our children. It's something that happened a little by little. And along the way, we realized this was not something we wanted to do just for family fun, for a vacation. It was something that we wanted to use as a tool to really teach our children. We wanted to expand their minds and develop curiosity. That's really important to us, to be interested in the world and be interested in people. And travel is such a wonderful tool for being able to see different experiences and ask questions and spark things that will lead to greater discussion later.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You mentioned earlier you don't homeschool the kids. So they have regular school years. Do you guys also have regular jobs? Are you freelancers? Are you entrepreneurs? You set your own schedule? Like, how is this possible with 5 children and 43 countries? And where does the time and where does the budget come into play for being able to make all this happen? I know you've given us one of your hacks already, like Airbnb is a more affordable option, but yeah, tell us where income comes from and then how are you using it to do all this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So my husband does have a full-time job. He works for Google. We love it. It's a great company and they do take care of their employees and provide an ample amount of vacation time. And we're super grateful for that. Our last really big trip was 2 summers ago, the summer of 2018. And that was shortly after we had had our 4th child. So my husband actually gets 12 weeks of paternity leave. So that time felt like such a gift. So we used most of it to travel. So we spent most of the summer in Europe and then we went to Southeast Asia. So that's one of the biggest things that we have realized in our family, that time really is money. So often now, especially with our kids in school and with jobs, I do some freelance writing from home and also do our blogging. With all of those time constraints, time really is the biggest hang up in terms of being able to travel. So it feels like such a gift when we have that time. I do a little bit of writing on the side and also do our blogging. And then my husband has a little side job that he does as well. So all of the side sort of stuff goes into our travel bucket and our travel fund. And we talk a lot about trying to expand the pie also. So it's not just a limited amount of money, but how can we use that money to grow into more money to be able to fill those purposes?
I love that. I love that. I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss out on is like, if you think of things, like you said, from a scarcity standpoint, and like, this is the only pool that I have to work with versus what other opportunities exist in order for me to be able to create more opportunities to be able to do the things that I want. And so it's not about being money hungry or money grubbing. It's just like, these are all the things I want to do. And this limited bucket is not going to allow me to do all of them. So where can I actively be seeking opportunities to fill up this bucket so that I can continue to do the things that I want to do? Do you guys also Airbnb your house?
We do, yes. So I've written a couple of blog posts about that actually, about our process for Airbnb our house, why it's effective for us. So by and large, we've had really good experience with our Airbnb guests. We are really picky with who we will accept. So we generally only accept families that have a lot of really good reviews beforehand. So we do not take new guests. And so we have a lot of requirements in place, I suppose, in order to be able to do it. That said, it has been a really wonderful way for us to pad our travel budget and to be able to cover some of our accommodations while we are out in the world as well.
Yeah, I love that as an idea to be thinking outside the box, because we think about, oh, I got to go somewhere. I got to pay for accommodations, but my mortgage is still due on this side. So why not turn my house into an income producing stream? Because I'm not using it during that time and I'm using someone else's. So to really flick the light bulb on and think about the different opportunities exist, I think that's really, really cool. What about the whole corona has kind of slowed everybody down and we're in the midst of that? Did you guys have travel plans this year that have been put on hold? And do you have like a 2020 to-do list that you're going to try to still get accomplished if and when the world opens back up?
Yes. So since we just had our fifth baby, we are lucky enough to have another long stretch of paternity leave. So our plan was actually to travel this entire summer. That will most likely not be happening. We are hoping that we'll still be able to do that at some point, but with everything as uncertain as it is, we're not sure when that will happen. That said, we still feel really passionately, and our interest has always been in learning through travel. And fortunately, we feel like we've been able to do that a lot, even while we've been at home. We do a lot of virtual travel right from home. And that's something we did long before Corona ever hit. I put together global learning guides for our children before we go to any country that we visit so we can learn about the art and the food and the culture and the history and all of those things before we ever travel somewhere. So we've been continuing on with some of those things without necessarily traveling to the places right now. So we've been trying to virtually visit one country each week. And right now, since it's National Park Week, we are actually visiting all of the national parks. So travel doesn't necessarily have to be international in order to be eye-opening and educational. There's so many wonderful things close by. And we feel passionately, even when we are able to travel, that it's so important to explore close to home as well, both virtually as well as getting out in our community and learning about the opportunities and the history and the people that are here as well.
What were the places that you were planning to go to this summer?
We were hoping to travel through the Balkans as well as through Eastern Africa.
Oh, wow. That would have been amazing.
It would have been really cool. Hopefully it'll still.
Fingers crossed it will still happen. So talk us through the budgeting process to plan a trip like that. What does it look like to say like, okay, this is how long we want to go for? You've already driven home the point of like really planning accordingly with your time. So like, hey, we got 4 weeks of paternity leave. This is a great time to be able to do that and tack something on the end. So that's like a cost efficient way. Even if you got to take a couple weeks that you didn't have to take 6 weeks off, you could use 4 and then had 2 more left over. But talk to me about the actual flights and accommodations and planning for the affordable things to be able to do and what that looks like. How do you plan this kind of trip?
Yeah, for sure. So with a long-term trip like that, it's a little bit different, obviously, just because 2 months is a significant period of time that we saved for specifically. Outside of that, though, for normal trips, we often will fly budget airlines. That's something that we have no issue with doing. We regularly fly Norwegian when we go to Europe, for instance, and they have flights out of San Francisco and out of Oakland. And so last November, we've traveled through Eastern Europe and we flew first to London. So our flights from San Francisco to London were, I think, $170 each way.
Wow.
Yeah. So we try to look for deals like that. And we don't mind being on a budget. We would rather be able to go and travel as locals in a different place and limit things like eating out all the time. So we definitely will make our own meals in our Airbnbs. And we very rarely buy breakfast. We'll purchase oatmeal and sandwich bread and things like that and eat in our apartment before we go out. And so our spending habits once we are in a location are not so terribly different from our spending habits when we're at home. So we try to manage our spending in such a way that it feels like we are locals in a place. That's important to us both in terms of immersing ourselves in the culture and learning what it's actually like to live in a country. It's important from that perspective. And it's also important in terms of stretching out our money so that we are able to go more places.
I love it. I love it. That's some really good tips. Just to really experience a place, you need to do things that the locals do, which involves, like you said, maybe cooking the meals and buying the groceries with the locals and things like that. So it gives you a different experience.
You learn so much about a place and its culture and its people just by seeing the kind of things that they purchase in a store or seeing the way that they grocery shop. Different cultures treat food and treat food purchasing so differently that it's really fascinating to be able to see that. And so that's an important part, not just of stretching our money, but of learning from our travel.
I know one of the things I was kind of caught off guard by initially was like a lot of places that didn't have bags. We tried that in America. A few states still have it, but like it's been a thing in Europe forever. Like you bring your own bag. If you don't have a bag, you're going to pay for a bag, like little things like that.
That really changes the kind of things people purchase. If you're going to the grocery store every day, you might get a couple apples. If you're going once every 2 weeks to Costco, then your purchase behavior is really different.
That is so true. What about like saving? How are you approaching saving for these trips? Is it like a percentage of income? Is it like you guys are, okay, this trip is 12 months away and we're doing X number of dollars? Or how are you guys having those conversations and deciding, okay, in order to meet our goals, this is what we got to do?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to be able to save a percentage and put some of that extra income into our travel fund. And so that sort of pads those things. And we also try to teach our children to be able to save for things that they want. So it's kind of embedded into our family culture. I have written before about our family economy system that we use. So it's an opportunity for our kids to contribute around our household. So we have certain expectations for them that are just built into being a part of the family, but then we have extra things that they're able to contribute toward if they choose to be able to manage a part of the family money is the way we treat it. So this is our family money. If you want to be responsible for part of it and choose how to use part of it, then you can contribute in these other ways. And so even our children are able to learn, okay, I want to save for a bigger purchase, or I want to use this money all on candy. And we try to teach that to them from a young age.
Is there kind of like a family budget meeting monthly or weekly or something like that you guys are doing as it pertains to like handing out the funds, or even just you and your spouse talking through the budget?
So we do have our family economy meetings once a week with the kids to talk about the money that they have earned and that they are responsible for that goes into their fund. So we do those on a weekly basis, but we don't have general family budgeting meetings.
Gotcha. Okay, this is really awesome. Can you give us maybe your like top 3 traveling on a budget tips to kind of wrap us up and bring us out? Because you are the expert at this and traveling with kids on top of that.
My first tip is to treat money as a tool. With any tool, if you think of a hammer or anything like that, the more you use it, the more it gets worn out. However, it's not going to serve you at all if you just leave it sitting in the closet. So money is a similar kind of tool. It needs to be used in order to be enjoyed. It's not something to be afraid of. It is something to conserve so that you can use it where you want to use it. So it's always going to get used in some way or another, whether you choose to use it in a savings account or use it for going out to eat a lot, or you can choose to use it for travel. So treat it as that tool and reserve it for the instances that you think are most important. And that can be different for each family. My second tip is, like we talked about, treat money while travel as you would at home as much as possible. It really allows for a more immersive experience in the culture. I think it enables a better local travel experience. And it also allows you to stretch your money further when you are able to treat it as people living there would treat it. So that's my second tip. My third tip is to include money as part of your family culture. Like I mentioned, we try to encourage our kids to understand money from a young age. And when we gain a better understanding of it, we're less fearful of it. We're less fearful of losing it, and we're less fearful of spending it. It is sort of ingrained in our family culture. So recently, our daughter, she chose to use a significant portion of her family economy money to buy roller skates for herself. She was really excited to do that. And she has used those roller skates every single day since she got them. She feels so much pride and joy in being able to use that money. I would say just ingrain it into your culture from a young age and treat children as though they are capable and interested in it. So we try to talk to them and give them that autonomy and that responsibility from a young age. And they've really risen to that occasion as well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Those were three awesome, awesome, awesome tips. You have dropped all the gems. I feel like people are going to know, one, how to better organize their budget so that they can travel. Two, they've opened up their mind to the idea that you can do it with your children, that it's not a limiting factor to have children and to also be able to travel. But then three, to organize your finances and use them as a tool to achieve anything you want in life. So, Preethi, it's been so awesome having you on the show. We are so grateful for you being a guest, and we want you to stand on the podium now and tell us all about how we can find you, where we can support you, what kind of projects you got going on. We'd love for you to tell us how we can pour back into you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been such a joy to be able to chat with you. And you can find me, I Instagram at Local Passport Family. So you can find me over there, or our blog is www.localpassportfamily.com. And I share lots of travel tips there, travel itineraries, and virtual travel resources as well. So you can find us over there. I also recently started a separate Instagram account called Mompreneur Academy, where I share tips to empower moms in chasing their small business dreams. So sharing lots of business tips, financial tips, marketing tips to help those who are interested in either starting or running their small businesses gain the tools needed for doing that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I enjoyed you having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Preethi's Money Memoir. She shared so many gems about how to prioritize your finances in order to do the things you want. I mean, they spent 3 weeks in Australia for less than a trip to Disney World, y'all. Like, wow. If you love to travel, don't think you have to give it up once your family starts to grow. In fact, that was the biggest piece of inspiration I got from listening to Preethi share her story with us. Having a budget and a plan is allowing Preethi to show her kids the world while teaching them how to handle their finances. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you found this episode worth listening to. As always, if you have financial questions, suggestions for guests, or would like to share your own money memoir, please contact us through our website, worth-listing.com.